In the last episode, we discussed the visitor's visa or the tourist visa available in Saudi Arabia now. In this episode, we want to talk about employment visas and what the options are for you today and how they've changed over the years.
Now, living there, they've changed the whole system completely. When I say changed it, I mean improved it. There's still room for improvement, but they've improved it. So how have they improved it? Number one, they're trying their best to find alternatives to the kafil system. I don't want to say that it's been removed, because it's not entirely removed yet, but it's an improvement nonetheless. So now, when you come to the country, essentially a business or whoever you're working for would issue your iqama, your residency. But your iqama and stuff will kind of be with you, and it's between you and the government. So the government acknowledges that you work for X company, but essentially your direct interactions with the government. And then you have a whole system called Abshir, whereby it's like an app, whereby everything is registered in the app. Your employment is in the app. Where you live, your residency contract in the app. When you get paid, in the app. I mean, let's say, so essentially the government has taken on the overall role as a kafil rather than individuals as a kafil. So let me give you an example how it's improved. So before, when you had a kafil, he essentially was in charge of you, which sounds so odd coming from a Western perspective, but he was in charge of you. And if he wants to abuse you, I'm not saying he could do it, but it was easy for him to make your life difficult. I mean, you could always go to the police and you can complain and you'll get in trouble, but it was just easier for him to mess you about. And that includes even delaying your wages, because maybe you won't get paid for this month, and you say, I'll do it next month, or I'll be later on, and you'll be like, what recourse do you have? I have to go to court, and it was a long process. Now, however, I'll give you an example of a friend of mine who lives out there. He works for university as a lecturer, engineering lecturer. And they asked him on his first payday, do you want your wages in cash or bank transfer? He said, oh, I'll take it cash this month because I've got to do some furniture shopping. So they gave him his wages in cash. The next day, bruv, he got a text message from the government saying, we've noticed your employer hasn't paid you. Do you want to launch a complaint?
Right.
So those days of having your employers abuse you, I would say coming to an end. I'm not saying it's impossible for them to still abuse you, but they're slowly trying to make your stay in the country more smooth, more easier, and like I said, to encourage people to come, because that's always been an issue with people. If I go to Saudi Arabia, the employment situation there is rough. Now they're making it a lot more easier for you, and as you can see there, the most important concern a person would have in employment is wages. When am I going to get paid? So the government have sorted that issue out entirely. So there has definitely made some improvements, but there are some flip sides to that. Still, there's still some niggling issues that I'll raise just so people are aware. So in my research into how Saudi functions, because I did in the last video we did, it was about UAE, but my research about Saudi now is that if you wanted to go from one employer to a new employer, so you imagine you're teaching at X madrasa, and now you want to teach at Y madrasa, or markaz, or institute, or ma'had, whatever. You obviously you put application to have a visa transfer, meaning you're transferring your employment from one person to another. And that's one of the things that made the whole visa process really good. That in the past, if you was to leave your employment with another company to go to a new company, what used to happen is that your old company would have to give you a final exit visa or final exit stamp. So leave the country and you come back in with the new visa with the new company. That's all dead now. Alhamdulillah, that saves you a lot of hassle. Now you can just transfer your visa. So your visa is still valid, even though you've ended your employment with guy A, and you just transfer to guy B, and you do that all within the country. You don't have to leave and come back in, all that nonsense. So that's an improvement, right? But if your new employment, so imagine you as an accountant with company A, and you're moving to as an accountant with company B, so you're in the same sector. What that means is, if your first company, the first guy, if he has any objections to that transfer, he can make an objection. So he's not in charge of you, but if he feels that there's conflict of interest, they have this really big thing about conflict of interest. Are you going to be harming your previous employer? For example, imagine you're working with a previous employer, you're taking all their customer, but your knowledge about how their company works, and they're going to their competitor. Will you be harming the first guy? So they can say, I object because he's going to a competitor. So it doesn't mean that his objection will be accepted, but that is still a factor, it's still a thing that you have to get kind of quote unquote permission to go to a competitor. If it's a different sector, he can't object. But if it's the same sector, he can say, I object because he worked with us for 15 years. We let him know our secrets, and now he's going to go to our competition. We object to that thing. So then you would have to make a case saying, no, that's not the case, and it'll be dealt with the government as an arbiter, and either they'll accept his objection, or they'll reject his objection. Obviously, his objection has to be realistic, and you may have to sign some kind of NDA, or I don't know if that's the right word, or some kind of agreement that you're not gonna divulge company secrets or not. But that's basically the only remnant I can see of the old system that still exists, whereby essentially your current employer has some kind of rights of where you go next. Not entirely like before, but some level they have some kind of rights over where you go next.
Get your copy of the Hijra Handbook at book.makehijra.com.
There is one last thing I want to mention on this, and I'll be going on about it, but one last thing to mention about this is that they have this new thing which brought out a few years ago called dependency tax. That's what it is. I don't think they call it a tax, but it is a tax. So that every dependent you have, with wife and children, you pay a certain fee. I think it's about 400 riyals a month. So 400 riyals a month is about 100 quid, 100 pounds. So if you've got like 8 kids and a wife, that's like 900 pounds a month you're paying just for them being there a month. So that's a big hit of your wage package. If your wages is like 1,800 and you're paying 900, that's half of it gone just from being there. So there is that hit that one has to recognize. I'm not sure if they're going to keep that, but that's what they did. But some have chose an alternative, and that is what I just told you a minute ago, e-visa waiver. So they would work there on the iqama, and as for their wife and kids, they just get that e-visa waiver. They come in 6 months, and every 6 months they'll do a border run with their wives, and that is cheaper than paying £100 a month. You just pay £30 every 6 months. Obviously, and that's perfectly legal, by the way. There's nothing illegal about that. That's perfectly legal. Of course, they come to the country with e-visa waiver. That's perfectly allowed. But obviously, there are certain things you can't do with an e-visa waiver that you can do with iqama. One of them is have a bank account. So that's why the whole e-visa waiver thing that I mentioned before is, as a tourist, you're there to come, do your thing, and leave. So you can't come and set up shop doing business. You can't come and open a bank account. You can't come, and you can't even get a monthly contract SIM. You can't get any bills in your name, electricity bills, water. You can't do anything because you're not a resident.
Right.
Which is not a problem for your children or for your wife because you're doing that. But it would be a problem if you have wife and kids and you're all doing that, because then you can't really set down any long-term roots like that. You'll be like a nomad in the land, which might be okay if you have young kids, but if you have older kids, it becomes more problematic. So that's I guess the lowdown on that. I mean, do you want to have any questions about that before I mention the other options of staying there?
Yeah, I actually do, man. So obviously you can't register the children for school.
No.
Is that right?
No. So schools, so e-visa waiver, it does stipulate that it can be used for education. Now, I don't know what that means. I'll be honest with you, I don't know what that means, because technically speaking, if you went to an institution like a private school, could you use that as your visa because you are legally allowed to be there and it is allowed to be used as education. Can you do that? I don't know. It might be a case by case situation. It might be a case whereby a school might allow it, whereas other schools might not allow it. It depends. It depends.
Okay.
I would be surprised if they wouldn't allow it because at the end of the day they're getting paid. It's private. But
Right.
I would definitely say that it may be if you want to go for like a public thing, like a public school where it's like government paid. Maybe they would definitely require more than that, and definitely with universities, I think you would need to go through the residency route if it's through like a university or kind of thing. But if it's like a short term, ma'had, learn Arabic, learn Quran, I don't think that'll be an issue because you can use it for education. That's
Okay.
the kind of thing for that one. So that's why I say that. But and in the same breath, the e-visa waiver can also be used for business, which is kind of like a contradiction. I thought you said you can't use business, you can't work on that. No, you can't work on it, but you can come in for like a business meeting. Imagine a presentation, a consultation meeting. You're coming in to meet consultants for whatever reason. So that is business, but it's not employment. You see the difference?
Right.
It is business, but it's not employment. So that's why what you could do is if we want to combine what we mentioned before in our previous videos about setting up a company in UAE. What you could do is set up a company in UAE, have residency in UAE, and then you can go. I mean, you're on the border. You can literally come in and out. You can literally have your residency set up in UAE on your own company, and then you go into Saudi Arabia as e-visa waiver, and you can run it that way if you wanted to. And in doing that, that gets around the issue of having a car, which is another problem which you can't do on the e-visa waiver. You can't have a car. You can hire a car, by the way. You can hire a car, but you can't buy one because again, that's to do residency. So what you could do is you can buy a car in UAE because you're a resident in UAE and just drive it in. Because you can do that. You're allowed to drive on a UAE car into the country, and you have to keep your UAE plates. So there's a way of combining different things, which is interesting. The way of combining different things. But yeah. That's back to the issue of education. What you asked, I don't know. I don't know the limits of how the e-visa waiver would work with education. But definitely, if your family wanted to go for more long-term education, like college or university, what you could do is that you could maybe get iqama or residency for that one individual, that one child, and the rest of them e-visa waiver just to reduce costs. It's up to you.
At MakeHijra.com, we're dedicated to helping Muslims like you make the move to the Muslim world with ease. Our latest project is the Hijra Readiness Assessment Test, a short, insightful survey designed to help you identify your strengths and areas for improvement on your Hijra journey. Visit HijraTest.com now and start your journey towards a successful Hijra, inshallah.
Are all these options outlined for somebody to reference, or you have to hire a lawyer, or you have to get a third party involved? Or can you just go directly to a source and look and see what your options are?
What we discussed so far, the e-visa waiver, that's just on the government website. I mean, you just go there. They have a new website now. I can't remember the name of it. But a new website now whereby you basically, they give you all the options. You just click tourism or work or diplomacy, and it tells you all the options available at that stage. You just click it, click, and it takes you what's your name, what's your passport, next step, and then at the end you pay for whatever you pay for, and you're through. They've made it really simple. Because like I said, they're trying to improve everything over there. But as for agents, as you know, agents are only really necessary because they know all the options and they can save you time. So all you're really paying an agent to do is to save you time. In the past, however, you actually had to have an agent to do simple things. For example, getting an Umrah visa, you couldn't just walk up to the embassy and get Umrah visa. Back in the day, like when I was in Medina, you had to actually go to a travel agent, give him your passport, and then the travel agent had to go to the embassy and he will get you your visa, and then he will give you the passport back. All those days are dead. Finished. No need for any of that stuff now. Now you literally go to the Saudi embassy website, put in details, upload your photo of your face, upload your passport thing, give me the details, and within an hour you might even get your visa done. Maybe the e-visa waiver or tourist visa. Maybe depending on the time. If you're doing it like on a Friday evening, then maybe you might have to wait until the Monday or wait until the Sunday, whatever, because of everyone knows at work. But if you do it during normal work hours on a work day, not on a Friday, you're good to go. Give it a couple hours, you get your visa, and you just print it out, or maybe not print it out. It's already on the system. You just attach to your passport, and that's it done. It's good to have a printed copy. Because I remember when went for Umrah last year, they said to my wife, "Where's a copy of her visa? We made Umrah." And it should have already been in the system because it didn't ask me for a copy, but it asked her for a printed copy. So only because of Qadr she actually did it just as a backup. She presented it, but and I don't know what would have happened if she had not presented it. But definitely having a printed copy is a good backup to have. But as for the employment, again, if you're employed by a company or a business, they will do all that for you. You just give them a copy of your passport and your passport photo, and then they'll deal with all the rest of that, and you get your visa issued, and that's it. As for the other options we're going to discuss in a minute, then we'll discuss it in a minute. But things have moved forward since 21 and since the noughties. Things have moved forward a lot, alhamdulillah.
All right. So as you can see, things are changing. So in the next episode, we want to talk about another option, and that's the business visa.